So this video is entitled There Are Dangers Everywhere. So it's a video response actually, because I was looking at some videos. I was a little bit intrigued by this one lady. She has this videos or several videos, and she's just really radical, like wild in her speech. And so I think the reason why she has so many followers, that might be why. Because the way she is, she's extremely eccentric, and she just seems like she comes out of the blue talking about like wild issues, things that you would never really think about. So one of her videos, I'm not even going to say her name, but one of her videos was about a mass exodus of Californians and people leaving California. And my response to that, if people are leaving California, um, most likely it has nothing to do with nuclear testing. So she mentioned something about the radiation and the air quality and the dangers of plutonium and certain elements, things that you really can't control and that are totally out of control of the general population because we don't control those benefactors. There are a lot of things that in every place, every different state, there's always dangers everywhere you go. So despite what, this might bring up the whole issue behind climate change, there are climate issues, climate change. There's species extinction, biodiversity loss, air and water pollution, natural resource strain, natural disasters, deforestation, soil degradation. There's a lot of different things that are all over the world that can affect anybody at any moment. There are earthquakes, there's hurricanes, there's tsunami. That are in smaller settings. Some people get attacked by animals, wild animals. You can end up sick with a disease, things that are hereditary, that are just things that are in your family history of health can, plague people. There are things that really aren't, you don't have a lot of control over. Some you might have minimal or a certain amount of control over, but running away and moving away, you're just moving to a new problem. That's the way I look at it. You're moving to a new problem. You're not really moving away from anything. You're just moving, you're trading one problem for a new one is basically what you're doing. So moving from one state thinking that, oh, they have this problem here and this problem here. If you go somewhere else, there's going to be something somewhere else, guaranteed. And that's just the way life is. So there was this talk about nuclear testing. Well, as just looking up nuclear testing and certain things that are done that can also alter the atmosphere. And, there are a lot of nuclear testing sites. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a place everywhere. And the general population is not really aware. They're not thinking about those type of things because they're too concerned about the Kardashians. They're concerned about what Kanye said, what he didn't say. They're concerned about, conspiracy theorists that are on social media. They're concerned about all these other people and these other individuals, the famous people. And these things are rarely talked about, but at any given moment, there could be a major disaster. There could be a huge earthquake. And by the way, earthquakes don't just happen in California. They can happen in other places too. There could be a blizzard. There could be a firestorm. There could be a lot of things, different things that really some people may or may not even be aware of or may not have much control over. So moving from one place, thinking that you're escaping danger, you're really not really moving away from danger. You're just trading one problem for a new one. And so I've said this in other videos. So this is basically a response to that one individual. I don't know if they may not ever really look at what I do. You know, maybe they think they're, more higher up than I am. But I feel like some people just say things off the top of their head at random because they try to gain followers. They try to gain a lot of, you know, I guess, notoriety. So if you just like pull up 50 years later, the tragedy of nuclear test in Nevada. Okay, that's Nevada. Then I see something called the Manhattan Project, which it had its first successful nuclear weapon test in New Mexico desert. And then there's other places that have had nuclear testing, that have had, different things that they've done. There's also things that people are afraid of that might trigger earthquakes, like fracking. I don't know if anybody has really known much about that. There's fracking. And fracking has been a big issue, especially here in California. The fracking dangers, there's pros and cons, and how it could cause earthquakes, what it does to the water, the different companies. Now, and there's fracking in other places other than California, but there's pros and cons, they claim. There's dangers. And so I know some people who have tried to fight that for a long time. Sometimes they'll set up like places where they do, drilling and digging, and it'll be in like the poor communities, and nobody knows about it until they start having problems with, like film on their cars, or they get sick with some illness as a result of the site they live next to. I've heard people complain that they've developed cancer from it. So there's lots of different things in different places that you may or may not have control over, that could cause, cancer, that could cause, you to want to relocate or whatever. But you really are trading one evil for another. If I, want to clarify that another way, you're trading one problem for a new one. So there a whole thing about fracking, hydraulic fracking. There's images, aerial views of natural gas fields in Wyoming, fracking in shale, catching methane from a gas well, water tanks preparing for fracking in close-up Marcellus shale. I guess it's like a type of like when you go deep down into the soil. And so there's a simulated version of the fracking in this photo here. And so you can see the chemicals, the storage tanks, the drilling, the digging, the drill well, and these are the soil formation down and below. And so there's potential for groundwater contamination areas, fracking zones. And so this has been a big issue here, primarily in California, and there's not been enough notoriety about it, I don't think. I think there's been some notoriety, but not enough. It kind of lays to rest after a while. People will make some noise about it, and then later it'll come up again about the fracking and the dangers, and how do humans harm the environment? What is meant by environmental threats? What is environmental risk? What is the greatest environmental concern? So there's many different things. It isn't just nuclear testing or radiation. Anybody can be stricken with these things. There's a multiple of things that can happen to people that could be potentially lethal. If you just go in the grocery store and you shop, and you go into the produce section, right now we have a major Romanian lettuce E. coli outbreak. Who would have known? Anybody could have went in the store and got Romanian lettuce for a salad and said, call it a night. And then now you're deathly sick and you're near dead, So there's so many different things. You go in the store, you see the produce, they're nice and red. Well, what chemicals made those apples and those oranges bright and orangey and bright and red and very green, the tomatoes and those huge grapes, what kind of chemicals are they being sprayed with something and people are eating it and they're not really aware? Even if you're rinsing it off in the water, okay, how safe is the water that you're using to rinse it off with? And then whatever they claim that you can use to like help you to rinse off the films, is that full of chemicals, dyes, things that could also harm you? So there's many things that can harm, a number of things, so many things that can harm humans. There's so many things, a lot of it is man-made. And if those things don't harm you, look at all the fighting and the debating and all of the people that can't get along. Somebody very well could attack you just based on your views, what you agree or disagree on. So I really don't really buy that when people say, oh, this is happening, the air quality, that's why a bunch of people, there's a mass exodus. It's like creating a mass hysteria. There's also the flu. I believe that more because that has happened, and it could be opening the door to let us know that there could be a bigger threat with the flu, because those are viral things that we can't really control. Well, we try to keep at bay, but you can only control it for so long until it eventually people end up dying of it because the strain is so strong. And, could that be because of the medicines that, people abuse? They're not taking all of their medicine, so their bodies tend to build up an immunity. The medicine no longer works. And so these viruses, they tend to get stronger and stronger, and strains are harder to try to get rid of. So will that be the destruction of males and females and man? So because of the resistance that our bodies are building up from all of these medicines that we take, that some people don't always finish all their medicine, or, and then thinking of people that don't finish their medicine and then put it down the drain. Where's that medicine going? It has to be going to the sea animals. And so, if you really want me to get deep, then, I would believe a lot of that would be more so destructive than just having a great, huge mass exodus of people moving from one state to another. There's so many different things. There are some places that, they have healthier foods, and other places they don't have healthy foods. And then what are they injecting in the foods before they put them in the store? And so there's a lot of things people get concerned about and worried about, but some of it is so far away from us that we can't control it all. So this lady that left this video, she was saying that, there was this air quality, this plutonium and this radiation. There's so many things that could kill people. I don't even think the radiation would have a chance before all the other things would do damage. There's a lot of other things, other factors that would do more damage than just some weird fluke or freak of nature type of threat. But, here we got people that can't even get along with one another. School shootings, stuff like that. People with mental breakdowns. You could be somewhere, you could be in a post office and somebody could be having a mental breakdown and you could be their next victim. So there's many things that we can't really put our finger on. So I don't think that one issue would cause for that big of a hysteria, not as much as some of the other things that are out there. But anyway, that being said, like, comment, subscribe. This is a short video. I just thought it was really crazy that the person left that, making it seem as though that everybody's leaving California. One of the biggest reasons might be how expensive it is to live here in California. I would believe that more so than any nuclear test, which happens everywhere. And radiation, there's pollution can't happen in just one side of the globe. If it's happening here, It's happening in other places, maybe in different forms. It could be in the water, it could be in the soil, it could be in your food, not just in one place. Like, comment, subscribe.